Hi, I'm Matt Witeska. I'm head of production at Six to Start, and I'm here to have a little conversation with Tom Crowley, who has written Between the Lines for our New Adventures series. We're going to have a little chat about Tom's process, how we came to make Between the Lines, everything to do with the script and the story, and we are going to include full spoilers. So if you haven't already played Between the Lines, then what the heck are you waiting for? Tom, hi, how's it going?
Hello, I'm doing very well, Matt. Thanks for speaking to me.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. One of my favourite parts of my job is that I get to work and speak with lots of talented people. So
Oh,
thank you for being one of those.
well, thank you. You're
Um,
all a bunch of tremendously talented people, and it's my great pleasure to get to work with you.
oh, look at this. We're starting off with a little compliment sandwich for
A
everybody.
lovely love bomb. Splendid.
What a nice way to start.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I think really just wanted to have a little chat today about the often unseen process by which we kind of create the scripts that we work on, and what your history of writing is, and your approach and that kind of thing. So, to begin with, I suppose, do you want to just give us a little bit of an idea of your writing background? How did you start writing? Why do you love doing it, etc.?
Oh, sure. Well, I have worked a lot in radio over my life, so, kind of alongside other things, and from lots of different angles. So my first professional job ever was when I was startlingly young. I think I was 20 when this actually happened, but it was off the back of a BBC New Talent search. Me and my sketch group, Sad Faces, we wrote and performed our own Radio 4 Extra show. And this was in 2008, kind of right before the financial crash really hit and commissions were harder to come by. So we got very, very lucky just getting that
Good
one
timing.
commission. Thank you. Yeah, just under the wire. And of course, after that, no more because no one had any money. But so that was our first experience. And we'd always loved, me and my friends, back then the lineup was Toby Wilson, Jack Bernhardt, and Rachel Lerman. We all met at school and we loved, we swapped CDs of different BBC radio comedies from years gone by. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, The Goon Show, but also other kind of sketchier things like I'm Sorry, I'll Read That Again, and
Sure,
stuff
sure,
like that.
sure.
So we were into all kinds of narrative, scripted comedy, and still are, and now create it. And so my experience with Sad Faces, we did 6 different shows at the Edinburgh Fringe. And so since then, since leaving university, I've worked in some form or other in writing. Ever since, I have written for some little bit of TV. I wrote on The Amazing World of Gumball for Cartoon Network for a
Oh,
season.
wow.
And, well, thank you. Yeah, it was a very exciting thing to do. And more recently, I became involved. I say became involved. We all sort of created the show, a podcast sitcom called Wooden Overcoats, which
Yes.
was based on an idea by Felix Trench, then developed with me, then handed off to amazing playwright David K. Barnes to turn into a full-fledged sitcom. And I've contributed, as well as acting in it, I've contributed a script per series, every series since then. And that was my first introduction to kind of independent audio, I suppose I'll call it, where
Sure.
I've done a lot more work since. And I'd include Zombies Run in that, even though it's less about plays than it is about a game. But there's
Yeah.
certainly a shared inheritance there. So, I mean, it's a very sort of weird mixed career I've had so far. But some of the most fun I've had is working with these independent, digitally distributed audio projects, which if you told me that was going to be quite a big industry 10, 20 years ago, I would have found that hard to believe. But it turns out, yeah, there's a huge appetite for this stuff, and working in it's been massively rewarding.
No, absolutely. I think that's what we've found as well. The idea for Zombies Run and our first creation of it back in 2011, 2012 was, I think, around the time of the very early days of the sort of fiction podcast boom and the independent audio boom, as you say. I think that was around about the time that Night Vale was getting started, and
Yeah.
um, I think it was a little bit before Overcoats, if I'm right, before you
I think
got
you're right. I
started.
think you did predate us by quite a while. I would have
Yeah,
thought, but maybe I'm mixing up the
I think
timelines
maybe
in
just
my head.
a little while, but yeah, I certainly remember back then, um, the the atmospheric understanding of creating audio and publishing audio was much lower than it is today, and yeah,
Can
it's
I
been
swear
really
on this, by the way?
sorry.
Can I swear on this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, you know what really grips my shit
Go
is
on.
There's plenty of non-sweary ways to say that, but I find that the most
That's a
apposite.
fun one. Yes.
The word intimate as applied to podcasting and radio plays in general, it really winds me up because it's describing something. It creates such a narrow definition of radio plays based on something which is not always true.
Yes.
I've heard so many projects described as, oh, it's very intimate. But what people mean is they listen to them in their headphones while out walking.
Right.
It might not be audio immersive. It might, or, or while cleaning or doing the washing up, by themselves. All it means is it's a medium that you traditionally now, while you used to gather the family around the radio, you don't do that anymore. You watch television, in common company. I know some people that listen to audio stuff together with other people. I've done that occasionally myself, but as a rule, podcast dramas, and other kind of interactive audio stuff, it's generally listened to on headphones on your own during a solitary moment.
Yes.
And it really winds me up because it's like saying TV has pictures. It's like calling TV a pictorial medium, and the first time anyone says what's good about TV, you say, well, it's pictorial. It's meaningless. So it really winds me up because it's such a given, and it's applied to shows that have no intimacy to them whatsoever. It's applied to programs where that isn't the interesting thing about them, but it's constantly sold, particularly by sort of bigger companies that are just getting into podcasting and digital audio. They go, well, it's very intimate, so we need to play into how intimate it is. And I just want to shake them and go, no, that's like saying we're only going to do POV TV shows. It's not a benefit. It's just limiting yourself to one focused area of something that's just naturally part of it anyway. You don't have to try and make it more intimate. Yeah. Anyway, pardon me. No. That's my gears ground.
I like it. I think you're right. It's a common. Incorrectly conflating the delivery mechanism with the creative intention.
Yeah, you said it much better than me there in a much shorter space of time.
But yours was more entertaining, Tom. So,
just edit mine out and just...
Oh yeah, no. This conversation, when we get to the end of it, it's just going to be me, and then all the nice things you're saying about me edited in between.
I mean, I'll be honest, Matt. If you wanted to follow me around and just listen to me talking for like 5 minutes at a time and summarize everything I've said into a much neater and less offensive package, that would probably help me out a lot.
But no, I think you're right, and one of the things that's been so fun about working on the New Adventures commissioning procedure and working with you on Between the Lines is exploring so many different ways of telling stories that are delivered through audio rather than starting out with the idea that they're going to end up with audio and working backwards from there, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And we've been able to create a lot of different atmospheres and genre and yeah, I'm just really thrilled with the slate of stuff that we're going to be putting out this year. And
it's all very exciting. I mean,
yeah.
As we're recording this, I haven't had the chance to hear the others in the line, but it's such a broad mix of stories, and I'm so pleased to see that. Like the fact that there's one that seems to be a kind of a light comedy about matchmaking.
Yes.
It's like fantastic. Like from the origin point of a horror game that's about running and escaping, survival. To then be able to do such a varied slate of stuff is brilliant.
Well, that's the thing, even we who are working on zombies all the time and have committed our professional lives to zombies thus far, even we aren't interested in zombie stories every day of our lives, and I love a good romantic comedy or a good travelogue adventure, or a good psychological, atmospheric, spooky horror.
And
it's great to be able to work on those stories and also in doing so, you're hearing from different people and telling different types of story for different people, which is really good. So how did you sort of come to submit your script ideas to us? What brought you to the Six to Start New Adventures commissioning process?
Well, what brought me there, I was just trying to remember. So I have a lot of very good and talented and brilliant friends who will occasionally alert me to these opportunities coming up. And I can't remember if I independently saw that the Six to Start were taking pitches, or whether it was a friend of mine pointed me towards it, because so often I owe every minor opportunity I get to somebody going, this is happening. And I go, no, I had no idea because I'm an idiot. But anyway, either way, I found it. And I started having a think. I listened to some of the other New Adventures that were already out, including, I believe it was you'll have to help me out. It was a space mission story about a broken down ship, and it was a fact-finding mission. And
Venus Rising?
Venus Rising was the one, yeah. And
Yes.
I listened to some Zombies Run to get a feel for the way the mechanics of the thing worked. And so I started thinking about, what exactly is the nature of playing these games. And it was clear that sort of forward momentum, not necessarily physically running, but some sort of progression forward in the story was crucial, because you needed that sense of achieving something or getting to a certain point forward every few minutes, And you could subvert that and have it just be a story that plays out at a dreamier pace. But in my mind, I thought, what's most likely to make the best use of this software? And in the end, as you'll have heard in between the lines, it does involve running.
Yes.
But that was a subsequent decision. But so I was just thinking about like this, what I'd like to do with the way that the mechanics of the game worked. And something that I said this to you on the phone, actually, Matt, during the development process after the pitch had been selected. But essentially, if there's a medium of storytelling that hasn't been Ghostwatched yet, I will want to Ghostwatch it. And I hadn't seen any sign that Zombies Run had been Ghostwatched yet.
No.
And by Ghostwatched, I'm referring, just for everyone under the age of 90 listening to this, just to summarise, Ghostwatch was a 1992 BBC drama special for Halloween, which was billed as a drama and had a written by credit at the start. However, it was presented totally straight-laced, straight down the line, as if it were a factual, Most Haunted style programme about ghost hunting. But of course, it being a drama with a special effects budget, if not a huge one, the twist, of course, is that there is a ghost and it is malicious. And it was compared to Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, where something that's presented, it's a drama being presented through the veil of a factual program.
Yes.
And the issue with broadcast telly in 1992 is if you switched on the show even 10 seconds after it had started, you missed the written by credit, and all you saw was Michael Parkinson, Mike Smith, and Sarah Green. Sarah Green, who was beloved TV and children's TV presenter. And so all these people that you knew from, shot on TV studio cameras that looked like what you would watch the news on or reality shows on, with presenters who would normally be presenting factual programs. It was presented perfectly immaculately as if this was a factual show. But of course, it all goes insane and terrible horror things start happening. And it's credited with traumatizing a whole generation of children. And to the point where the BBC actually had to officially disown it because it caused such a tabloid sensation at the time. Finally, the BFI and Network and various other sort of DVD companies managed to get it released. And it's one of the best, I think it's one of my favorite horror films of all time. It's a 90-minute amazing thing. But anyway, so the whole point of it was it used the medium of television within its very storytelling to ameliorate the frighteningness of it. And we've seen other things like that recently. Paranormal Activity, I think the team behind Paranormal Activity essentially admitted they'd ripped the idea off Ghostwatch at one point. And I believe it's number 3 or 4 is literally a remake of Ghostwatch. And they outright said it like, oh yeah, we just wanted to do an even more Ghostwatchy film. And so I love that, and I love the approach to using the medium as best you can in an almost sort of meta way to immerse your viewer by making them a part of the world, a part of the world of the thing they're watching or consuming in some way. And I thought we have Zombies Run, which is already a kind of audio immersive game, and if we just twist that slightly and we make it that it's less a Zombies Run game, but an audiobook that's being listened to, and the audiobook begins to sort of possess the listener. The audiobook starts to infect the real world of the person listening. And that's sort of where the idea came from, was I thought, this is how I can ghost watch Zombies Run.
I love it. And, I think being a team of people who are over 90 were around.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the 90s, and both Adrian, the CEO of Six to Start, and I were talking very excitedly about the potential of ghost watching Zombies Run. So we were very glad to come from that angle. And I think
I was glad to have your help on that.
Oh yeah, it was wonderful. I think one of the moments that when you sent the script, and one of the things that I was like, oh, that's so clever, was so towards the end of the story, when you, the player, are returning home, and you're getting a call from your housemate telling you, "Don't come home. The stones are watching from across the street. The other rabbits' feet are here." I thought like subverting. What everyone wants to do when they are done with a long run is get home and rest. And I thought
that's interesting.
subverting that that comforting return leg of a long run and turning it into like the last thing you want to do is get home is a real. I think it's a real like lovely moment of sort of the immersive horror of it, and it's really embodying you in the story in a nice way.
Oh, thanks very much, Matt. I mean, I have to admit that's almost unintentional because I didn't think. I love going for recreational walks. I'm not a big runner myself. I know that's anathema to say in the halls of Zombies Run, but I know the exact feeling. It's whether you've been out for a long walk or whether you've been out for a run or been out to work or whatever. That I think probably subconsciously that comforting thought of, oh well, soon I'll be home and everything will be okay. That being undermined was certainly a part of that decision. But it was also partly that I wanted despite everything happening around the player, I wanted for as long as possible it to seem like the things happening around you were only whispers of something sinister that you could put down to just being suggestible. The player character being suggestible to the horror that they're being told inside this audiobook they're listening to, and then to let things be laced in gradually until there's a sudden spike. And ultimately, Between the Lines is a story about somebody who goes out for a jog and stops off to buy milk on the way, and then comes home, and that's the story. But with some extra dimensions added along the way. But naturally, the point of coming home is just it's the last stop on a very linear storyline. But one that I think maybe there was some level where I realised, at some point, she or they running is going to have to turn back, and then suddenly making that. Again, this is part of the forward momentum thing. Yes. Is that it's technically returning, but still going for a jog. The last half is heading back again, and that sense of forward momentum. You always want to be. In any kind of storytelling, especially storytelling where you have a very direct and straightforward narrative, you want to find the little places where you can pull the rug out. If you've got something that's very clear and gettable, that gives you the platform from which you can undermine things. And that's if you end up in that position where you have a really nice, clearly established set of rules and wants and a direction for the story, it's just an absolute dream for a writer to find the exact right way where you can just twist it slightly and then freak people out, essentially.
And I think similarly in I've forgotten his name. Sorry, remind me the name of the protagonist.
Oh, there is no name of the protagonist.
He's not named.
Wait, you mean in Between the Lines?
Yes, sorry, I mean in the audiobook.
Oh, yes, of course. God, I can't remember now. Give me a second.
Hang on, I'll pull the script up.
Thanks.
I'll cut this out. I can remember.
Leave it in.
I can remember Thryke's name, obviously.
Thrike is a good name. I was sure I'd heard the name Thrike. You keep this all in. This is fine. I think people should know that. Writers. Well, it's like when people get interviewed years after they've made a film or something. They go, the main guy, Snake Plissken. They've forgotten because if it's you doing it so often. I think these works of fiction, they mean a lot to the person creating them, but to that person, it's one job of many. But to the person watching it could be the most impactful thing they've ever seen, and I think it's only fair to be candid about that.
No, well, that's actually one of my favourite little anecdotes. I met Ron Gilbert, who co-created.
Oh, I love.
Monkey Island, and a lot of other games that people of my age and Tom's age have a lot of nostalgia for.
Can we just talk about them for the next half an hour? Is that?
Oh yeah, absolutely, easily. I met Ron Gilbert at a press event for his game The Cave, which came out about
I didn't play that one
7 or 8 years ago, maybe 9.
Okay.
And he was sort of mingling with people and talking to the various people that were there, and understandably, a lot of people were asking him about Monkey Island, and someone. I can't remember what the question was that prompted this reminiscence, but he said, I get people coming up to me practically every day, attempting to engage me in insult sword fights, and and I need to remind them, look, you played that game 50 times and you most recently played it last week. I wrote that game once and I did it 30 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't remember any of these jokes. So I think it's exactly the same thing. The protagonist's name is Whitlow. And
Whitlow, yeah, John Whitlow. That's.
Yes.
I think I did very well there. I think that's a very good.
It's a very good. It's a very good protagonist name. But coming back, what I wanted to say was, we were talking about pulling the rug out from under our audience and finding those moments in the story to make an interesting reversal. And this is probably another entry in the Matt is massively overthinking the meaning of things. That's what you do with an English degree.
No, it's all in there. It's all in there. If you read it, this is a thing about art in general. If you read something really clever into anything I've done, it is true,
intentional,
and I definitely thought of it. Yeah, so just assume that.
Well, in this case, it's very nice because it's the reversal of the thief archetype, I suppose, in that Whitlow is going into Thryke's house to steal things, find things of value, but of course comes away with something more than he bargained for, and the fact that he's brought anything with him is a bad thing, not a good thing. And I think it's just all those little moments of sort of fridge horror, I suppose, the little subversions of expectations of what makes a story in the genre that Between the Lines is in really gripping. Is the kind of nothing will be as you expect it, and the things you think will be good will turn out to be bad.
Well, thanks, man. I think it is like I realized after the fact, and I put this in a blog post I did when the story was announced, but I realized later, after I'd handed it in, how much of a debt it owes to A Warning to the Curious by M.R. James.
Yes,
or more accurately,
yes.
the Ghost Story for Christmas film made of that story,
Yes.
with Grouty from Porridge. But it's a brilliant film, and I think that part of it is, if you look at something like that compared to The Woman in Black, so often with haunted house stories, there are only so many, and this isn't really a haunted house story, but there certainly is a spooky house involved. There's only so many reasons that you go into a house that is, notably sinister, and that's either if you're an insurance agent, like in The Woman in Black, or if you've inherited the house, like in any number of spooky house stories. Or if your kids, messing about and investigating, the spooky old house in the town or whatever, that's another reason if you're just kids who don't know any better. But another one is, burglar. And it's the scene of him, of Whitlow opening his suitcase and the tools of his trade being inside. I mean, that's a lift from M.R. James almost completely. But it's just an image that I loved. And it is a little different because with M.R. James, we're talking about a sort of archaeologist or a treasure hunter, who digs up old relics. And so that's a different thing. But the idea of him being a housebreaker, I quite liked, partly because as I tried to work out the kind of meta-narrative behind who Thryke was and what his relationship was to the small kind of provincial town that Whitlow's entered, and you start to do little bits of story troubleshooting in your own head where you go, okay, so people already know this place is empty and might contain treasures or valuable things. People already know that, fine. So who's already been there? How long ago did the guy die? Why wasn't any of this stuff inherited by anyone? And you want to just make sure that all those questions, even if just in a cursory way, are just answered for the audience so they don't prove any distraction. And so the simplest way to get our sort of secondary protagonist, Whitlow, into the house was that he shouldn't be there as well. That adds an element of tension.
Yes.
So being observed at all, whether it's by a mortal person or a supernatural presence, is deadly. And that just it's good. It's a good story. It's a good story.
Yeah, no, it is a good story, and it's really nice as well because the thing I always loved about M.R. James's stories and the kind of that horror archetype is the breaking the rules you're unaware of and having no way of walking it back.
Yes.
I think one of the things that's so scary about classically Pan's Labyrinth is that it is that idea of walking in an unfamiliar world, accidentally breaking these rules, and then having to pay the price anyway. That's the fear. The fear that like you almost have like zero agency and no way of protecting yourself.
It's like Twitter, isn't it? It's like Twitter. There's one on Twitter, get cancelled. Well, there you go. Can't say anything these days, Matt. I don't believe that. No, but it is. It is. I think that there is. I think that does tie into a very similar fear, actually, which is the idea that, you know, if you meet somebody new, I mean, we encounter it all the time in life. You know, it's like if you mention something innocuous like cutlery to someone, and they suddenly get very upset with you. And they go, what's the matter with cutlery? And someone else says, oh, actually, they had their family's collection of antique cutlery stolen recently, and even the mention of a fork will drive them. And there are so many sensitivities that people have that you would never know about, and it can be very difficult to kind of to feel like you're behaving well in a world which has as many different perspectives in it as there are people. And I think that a natural extension of that kind of social terror is that kind of, and also things like a fear of the ancient, and it's a religious fear as well. You know, if you're very devout and Christian, and somebody tells you one day, oh, by the way, you know, it's also a deadly sin to wear a shirt made of more than one fibre. And you go, well, I do it all the time. Oh my, I've already done it. I must repent. And if there's no confession, if there's no repentance, if there's no way to apologise, then it's too late. You've sinned. Yes,
exactly. And now you are going to be one of the stones in the barn. Protecting him from hell.
That's right.
Yeah, and you know, no, it's just it's a very sort of haunting kind of fear as well, because I think one of the things that's so interesting to people, I think, about zombie stories and apocalypse stories in general is they have an almost like counterintuitive, soothing quality, because they're a very practical problem when it boils down to it, and you can really plan. It's a very planner's horror. You know, you can think about, you know, how would I barricade my house? How would I protect the people that I love? You know, I bet I could grow potatoes better than him next door. You know, I mean, I would survive better after Sainsbury's goes under. But I think the more sort of supernatural horror, the existential horror, the kind of this kind of rule breaking horror is scary in a deeper way that you kind of can't rationalize your way into feeling good about. You have to kind of learn to sit with the fear a little bit, and that I think makes it very powerful.
It's justice beyond the grave, isn't it? It's like if you ever had a negative thought about someone who's dead. Yeah, and I think that we all grow up. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't describe myself as an atheist, but I'm also not very religious, and so my feeling about it's pretty zen. Like, well, you know, if there is an afterlife, they probably can't hear what I'm saying, and if there isn't, then don't worry about it. But you know, it's that little illogical sting of just like, when you suddenly have an ill thought about someone that you know's passed away, and and you go like, oh no, sorry. Like a little part of you says a little prayer to them and goes, no, I didn't mean it. Because there seems to be something wrong. And it's also, you know, if it's somebody who was kind and decent and who you cared about in some way, whether they were very nice or not, you know, you feel guilty. But if it's somebody who you know was a right piece of work, then you think, no, don't come and get me. You know, and I think that's woven into the fabric of like our kind of the spiritual world of how we write fiction and how we build stories as well. Yeah, but it's interesting as well because it's you've got two people who commit a wrong, one of whom knows he's doing wrong, and the other one they don't know they're doing wrong at all because the runner, the main character in between the lines, is just going for a run, doesn't realise there's anything wrong with the patch of stones or the land that they have a run over, whereas Whitlow very much knows he's done something wrong. So what does that mean? I don't know. It's very clever though, whatever it is.
I think Beckett said that originally.
That's right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Well, what like when you are kind of putting the story together and talks about your inspiration, Ghostwatch and M.R. James and what when you're sitting down to the brass tacks, what does a writing day look like for you? Are you a walker and a thinker and then a scribbler? What's the kind of setup? What's your process?
I've been thinking about this quite a lot recently, actually, because as you may know, Matt, and as many of your listeners might know, a lot of the writer's life is being a kind of, especially in lockdown, I felt a bit like a battery farmed hen for ideas. So I'm in my little flat cage, and I'm just popping idea eggs out time and time again, and and then they'll be taken away by the producer and commissioner farmer, and then some of them will be dashed against the rocks outside the farmhouse, and some of them will make a nice omelette, and it's that kind of lifestyle. And I realised that actually. And I talked about this a bit, whenever I've written about creativity or done any sort of writing tips, it's often like, I often say, indulge yourself to some extent, because everyone has a different process. But for me, that indulgence is what I've just done earlier today, which was not have any ideas, sort of know what sort of thing I want to be working on, whether that might be a sitcom project or a screenplay or or something specific, a commission like Between the Lines was. Going for a walk is always the best thing for me. Put music in my ears and go for a walk. A responsibly socially distanced walk, by the way, because we're recording this during the COVID-19 lockdown.
Of course.
And exactly. And just have a think. And so often I'll come back at least with the seed of an idea. And if not, go again the next day and see how you fare. And so from that process, the early ideas stage there's a lot of walking around and having ideas and then coming home and just typing them up into a notes app or whatever. But for me, and I think I'm quite rare among writers in this sense, for me the drafting always has to happen at home at my normal desk, just in front of my computer. Like my partner is also a writer, and she can't stand writing from home. So lockdown's actually been quite a feat for her. But she's done amazingly. She's adapted brilliantly. But her preference would always be to go out to a cafe where there's some hustle and bustle and use the journey there to think about what she's going to do. Sit down there, get a coffee and a cake, and just sit and write. And for me, that's there's too many distractions. I just can't do it. So for me, it's very much at home, at my normal desk, my normal place of working, and it's just plugging into it till I'm zoned in enough that I'm not consciously working anymore. If you know what I mean. Like the problems are solving themselves in my brain, and my fingers are writing them down. And that's me. That's a writing day, and generally. There's no way around that when it comes to the drafting process. Once the whole outline is ready, I know exactly how the plot's going to work, or at least I know enough to start the actual drafting of a finished draft with dialogue and stage directions and things. There's no other way around it. I just have to sit down, open the document, and go. Yep. And that's once the work time has come. That's what I have to do.
Yep. Yeah. At a certain point, you just have to sit down and do it.
Yeah.
No one else is coming to do that for you.
No. Do you ever trick yourself into starting work? Because I do that.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah, you open the document and then you just have it there, and you're sort of idly reading back over what you've already read, or over your notes if you haven't started yet. And you put a YouTube video on or some music, and then after a while you sort of start to realise that the YouTube video is annoying you, so you turn it off.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you started working.
Yeah. The best writing tip I ever got, and it's one I don't apply as diligently as I need to, but it always works wonders whenever I do, is never get out of your chair unless you know exactly what the next thing you're going to type is. So the best time to get out of your chair is halfway through a sentence.
That's great. Yeah, because you don't come down and get stuck again.
You like walk away from a scene in the middle of an argument that you know where it's going to go.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Literally, don't wait until you feel finished. Wait until you feel
unresolved.
Yeah, unresolved.
Or rather,
exactly.
there's a hanging note. Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
Exactly. The unresolved chord, the hanging note, exactly is what we're looking for. And that's
I had a similar theory which I wrote in some article or other, but I said leave with a problem to solve.
Yes.
And also leave yourself a solution to a problem. One or the other. So you either leave with a note at the bottom of your draft, which either says you need to know why Monica leaves the room, or whatever, or a note that says Monica leaves the room because she's going to do this. So you either leave your draft going, okay, so I know I need to think about that before I get back to this, or you're going, okay, I know the next thing that's going to happen. It's going to be this.
Yeah.
So it's either leave with the problem or leave with the solution noted for yourself. That's
I like that.
Which is similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Giving the background process of your brain something to whir away on.
Yes.
Yeah.
As if they needed any encouragement.
Do you have is it a corkboard full of index cards for problem solving? Do you have a particular plot breaking method you can share, or
I wish
is
I
it
did.
really
I've
just
always,
plowing your head against the brick wall?
No, I know what you mean. I always wish I had I've always sort of romanticised the idea of having a little corkboard of just, and it's got words on it like agenda and echo and resolution and things like you see in not in real writers' rooms, but in American movies about writers' rooms.
Yes,
and it's
yes.
just like, Stephen, want father, stuff like that. And they're saying, maybe Stephen doesn't want a father, and he says, stick to the premise, that sort of thing. But I don't. It's very sort of, the closest thing I have to an official process is I always have one notebook on the go, with a paper notebook that I write by hand in, especially if I don't quite know what I'm doing yet. It's a really nice exercise to have the physical sensation of writing,
Yes.
and getting your thoughts down manually. I'm just looking right now at my desk with a little unresolved journal entry for me thinking about a new TV idea or something. That kind of thing. And it's just ramble about a conversation I just had on the phone, followed by a few sort of not vestigial, what's the word I'm looking for? Embryonic ideas.
Yes.
For a TV pilot or something. And it's just that sort of thing is very sort of freewheeling and freeform. But I discovered, and this is not intended as a sort of sponsored plug, but Evernote. Yeah, but there's also millions of other writing apps are available. But you have, there's OneNote from Microsoft and all these others, and and Google Drive does similar things. But it's just the fact that I have this one thing that I open, and that's entirely for planning, basically, or notes, reference. So I can have a notebook that's entirely about Six to Start, Between the Lines, and then I've got research into the train lines and how they worked at that time in history. When it's set in my mind. And also just little references like, how long is this person in this place? And it's just somewhere I can go, okay, how long's Thryke been dead? This many years. Okay, great. But also a place where all these just toilet paper bits of notes can just happen. Yes. Meandering thoughts on a character and how they think and who they are. Like I find that hugely useful. And actually, discovering Evernote really helped me to streamline a lot of and discovering the very notion of sort of syncing notes apps with multiple folders and documents within them. That really helped me to streamline those thought processes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it really. But no, I wish I did have a great big sort of, I'm thinking like an A0 dimensions corkboard just covered in amazing ideas that I could look at every morning and go, I'm brilliant.
That's the dream.
Yeah, what a dream. Someday.
Or paint one wall of your room with like chalkboard paint.
Yeah, blackboard paint. Yes. Perfect. Yeah, and then just all of the ideas. Theme, just really big at the top.
And make everything into a mind map for no good reason.
Oh, exactly. I do use mind maps sometimes, I use them mainly when I am trying to think. Like this doesn't work for everybody, but I've tried to find. I mean, as I say, battery farmed idea hen. But so often having the idea, going for a walk is great, and often that'll sort me out. But if not, another thing I've sometimes done is, well, let's say, for example, I know that someone's looking for radio sitcom pitches. What I might do is write radio sitcom in the middle of a page, circle it, and then spin it off in directions like location, job, character,
okay.
And then start going, what's an interesting setting? Okay, a swimming pool. What's an interesting person? Village parson. And then just start to spring ideas off ideas on a big tree. And usually that gives you something, even if it doesn't actually provide you the genius idea that's going to make you rich. But still, it's something.
Yeah, it's almost like my wife's very, 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 very good at anagrams. The whole method of writing out the letters in an anagram in like a square and then a different square and a different square.
Oh wow!
Just so you're putting interesting. Well, in that case you're just putting letters next to each other in a different combination. But I suppose that's almost what you're doing with your mind map. Is you're just putting interesting things next to one another, physically on the page.
I remember someone once saying to me that like the dream of a really good sitcom is to find an interesting setting and to put the funniest possible character in there, which is an interesting idea, but it is also like saying, well, firstly, it doesn't apply to loads of different programs, and secondly, it's also like saying, listen, if you want to write a really good comedy show, think of one brilliant idea, and then think of the best brilliant idea you've ever had. Thanks, great. I'll think of that then, and then I'll be rich. Fantastic.
Yep. And that's also how we got the British Empire.
I know a lot of people who absolutely adore it, man. I've not seen the British Empire myself, but I'm not gonna decry it publicly.
It's the manager of a community leisure centre.
Yes.
Yeah. Tom, this has been a lovely conversation.
What's a joy?
And it was really wonderful working on Between the Lines. I think
it's such a delightful time working with Six to Start on this. It was just so much fun. One of the most sort of frictionless and inspiring creative interactions I've ever had, I must say.
Oh, well, that's lovely.
I'm not just blowing smoke up your bumhole there. I mean it. Like it was both working with you guys was encouraging, also helped me to refine my ideas, and I just felt so free to do what I wanted with this story, which is, I believe, what we've delivered.
Yeah, no, it was great fun, and it's always a lovely recording process when you're taking breaks in between takes just to have a chat and talk about it through. The first thing the actors are often saying is, "Oh, that's a good line." Yes. So, final question just before we sign off.
Sure.
We've mentioned M.R. James, we've mentioned Ghostwatch, we've mentioned the British Empire. If people have listened to Between the Lines and loved it thoroughly, what would you recommend they check out? Maybe one thing you've worked on and one thing you haven't worked on that you'd like to point people towards.
Well, I don't know whether I can actually say this yet, but probably, who cares? Anyway, at some point in the future, it will be released, and if it isn't, something went really wrong. I wrote an audiobook spin-off of the brilliant comedy horror drama series The Scarifiers recently, which should be released late in 2020 or thereabouts. But anyway, it's I won't tell you the title in case they change it, but look out for The Scarifiers, which comes out from Baffle Gab Productions, who are another fantastic independent audio drama company. And I mean, check out their whole library. The Scarifiers is fantastic. It's comedy more than horror, but it's great, brilliantly produced, immersive horror stuff, as well as being very funny, and stuff that I didn't work on. I would say another point of reference that I didn't mention earlier, which is in this exact same vein as Ghostwatch, is the Inside Number 9 live special Deadline, where they basically did a Ghostwatch, but it was really nicely done, and they really put their own spin on it. And actually, Inside Number 9 as a whole, they're like, I felt the sort of hand of Shearsmith and Pemberton like heavily weighing on me as I was trying to create a standalone story with a satisfying twist and a compelling world building within half an hour. Yeah,
it would be a good Inside Number 9, I think.
Could well be an audiobook inside that could happen. They're probably writing it now. But yeah, so many great episodes. So it's an anthology which a genre I absolutely love, like Twilight Zone and Night Gallery, and to a lesser extent Black Mirror as well. I also love that. And just to have that coming out, funny, thrilling anthology, sometimes horror, sometimes thriller stories, going out on primetime BBC Two is a blessing that we should all appreciate. And so look up Inside Number 9 on Netflix or iPlayer, wherever it's available in your territory, and find a lot of cool stories with exciting twists that you can enjoy.
Cool stories with exciting twists that you can enjoy. That's what we're aiming to do here at Six to Start. There you go. What a great button you put on that, Tom. Lovely job.
Oh, yeah, well, you're welcome.
Tom Crowley, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.